Think of a time when you have used small groups or learning groups in your class. What were your experiences? How did students react? Did you find that students had no interest in working together, or that problems arose as students attempted to work together? This module gives you background information on cooperative learning, its definition, its benefits for students, key elements, examples of Tennessee classes that use cooperative learning, and guidance and information for next steps. In addition, it will help you think about the social and personal competencies that students need to engage successfully in cooperative learning groups. When students work together, they are more likely to form more meaningful and caring relationships with one another. However, students do not necessarily report that they are engaging in cooperating activities or have opportunities to form respectful relationships with their peers. In a survey administered to almost 90,000 Tennessee middle and high school students in 2013-14, only about half of those who responded agreed or strongly agreed that they had an opportunity to cooperate with one another on schoolwork. About half agreed or strongly agreed that students in their school were easy to get to know. In addition, only about 30% agreed or strongly agreed that students respected each other's differences. A student focus group confirmed the importance of creating opportunities for students to collaborate and get to know each other. According to a Tennessee 2016 Student Advisory Council focus group report, students say that assignments that incorporate hands-on work, collaborative learning activities, real-world content, and active classroom discussions are the most interesting and engaging. As teachers, the ways we group students and have them work together dramatically affect their social and personal competencies. So, what can you do about it? How can you help students learn to cooperate effectively? This module will provide you with strategies to consider for implementing cooperative learning effectively. Cooperative learning is a student-centered, teacher-facilitated instructional practice that gives responsibility to a small group of students for their individual learning and the learning of all group members. To engage in cooperative learning tasks effectively, students use a variety of social and personal competencies, such as regulating engagement in the task, perspective taking, leadership, and collaboration skills. When teachers are implementing cooperative learning strategies effectively in the classroom, they are creating opportunities for students to develop and apply a variety of social and personal competencies. Cooperative learning is the 5th learning module in the Social and Personal Competencies modules series of 10 modules. If you have not already, you can review the Introduction to Social and Personal Competencies module to learn more about the goal and purposes of this series. We developed each module to address one of the 10 teaching practices that promote social and personal competencies, as described in the Tennessee Toolkit titled Incorporating Social and Personal Competencies into Classroom Instruction and Educator Effectiveness, a toolkit for Tennessee teachers and administrators. Cooperative learning is more than informally assigning students to a small group and asking them to learn together. Cooperative learning differs from standard small group work. In cooperative learning, students must learn to work together to share resources, assume complementary roles, and learn to interact effectively to reach group goals. The teacher holds students accountable both individually and as a group. Students are also given an opportunity to reflect on how their group interacted to reach the group goal. To implement cooperative learning effectively, teachers must carefully plan and facilitate during the group instructional activities. In this module, you will learn how to implement cooperative learning and what differentiates cooperative learning groups from standard small groups. If you have not already downloaded the handouts for this module, now is a good time to do so. You will be directed when to refer to each of them. Through this module, you will learn how cooperative learning influences the acquisition of social, personal, and academic competencies by students. You will learn about the benefits for students. You will identify the 5 essential elements of cooperative learning to ensure that students engage in effective cooperative learning groups. You will see examples of cooperative learning from Tennessee classes. At the completion of this module, you will be able to reflect on what you have learned and plan a lesson using cooperative learning. You will finish up by developing next steps for implementing cooperative learning. When you use cooperative learning in your class, not only will you create a more positive and respectful learning environment, but your students will develop competencies that help them be successful in school and life. A great deal of research has been conducted comparing cooperative learning to other types of instructional activities. For example, Johnson & Johnson reported that when students engage in cooperative learning, student achievement and motivation increases, productivity improves, more positive peer relationships develop, and social development improves. Additional research by Gillies found that when students engage in cooperative learning, their motivation to learn increases, they learn more, and they retain information and knowledge at greater rates. Furthermore, research has found that when students have opportunities to work together through cooperative learning, their self-esteem and self-concept improve. One reason student outcomes improve when students engage in cooperative learning is that they are purposefully working together to accomplish an academic task using their social and personal competencies. Students learn to work with peers in meaningful ways and hold each other accountable for learning. Students learn how to communicate more effectively and how to provide quality feedback to each other. Students also learn how to consider the perspectives of other students, negotiate the sharing of resources and tasks, and deal with conflicts as they arise. Doing so enhances their perceptions of one another, breaks down barriers between them, and develops positive interactions and friendships. Cooperative learning is reflected within components of the Tennessee Educator Acceleration Model, which many educators in the state refer to as TEAM. For example, activities and materials reflects the fact that cooperative learning requires teachers to introduce activities and materials that provide opportunities for student-to-student interaction. Similarly, we can identify cooperative learning elements within the academic feedback, grouping students, environment, and respectful culture components of the TEAM General Educator rubric. This module will help you learn how to employ cooperative learning in a way that is consistent with the significantly above expectations category within the TEAM rubric. Before you begin, take a few minutes to reflect on your use of cooperative learning in class and the ways students react. If it's helpful, reflect on your use of these practices in a recent, easily remembered class. Otherwise, consider your use of cooperative learning during a typical day. You can refer to Handout 1, Cooperative Learning Self-Assessment, to reflect on how you implement cooperative learning in your classes. Once you complete the self-assessment, reflect on which practices are easiest for you and why. Which are the hardest to implement and why? Now that you have reflected on your use of cooperative learning, take a deeper look at cooperative learning in action. Select either of the short elementary classroom videos. As you watch the video, pay close attention to the teacher's approach to cooperative learning. Refer to Handout 2, See It in Action Reflections, for some questions to reflect on as you watch the videos. Cooperative learning is a powerful instructional strategy to support increasingly diverse student populations. The strategy is appropriate for all students and any subject. For example, teachers have employed cooperative learning with diverse student groups, including English language learners, students of all ability levels, students with disabilities, gifted students, and students representing different races or ethnicities. In addition, Teachers have used cooperative learning for various academic subjects, including reading and writing, mathematics, science, social studies, the arts, and physical education. Furthermore, teachers may use cooperative learning for a variety of different purposes, including supporting students to learn specific knowledge, cognitively process what they learn, engage in inquiry-based problem-solving activities, engage in higher-order thinking, or develop a group product or performance. Teachers can also call on cooperative learning to teach and reinforce specific social and personal competencies. For example, the K-12 Social and Personal Competencies Resource Guide suggests cooperative learning groups, strategies, or projects as ways to address dimensions under self-awareness, social awareness, and relationship skills. You can find out more in Handout 4, Reflection and Additional Information, including social and personal competency programs that focus on self-assessment and self-reflection. There are some general principles that the teacher may consider to effectively implement cooperative learning lessons, including the following. The teacher pre-plans group size and student membership, the structure of the activity, and individual and group accountability. Teachers may assign 3 to 5 students to a group based on different factors, including gender, ethnicity, and performance level, and using different procedures such as random, heterogeneous, student selected, or common interest. The structure of the cooperative learning activity may vary depending on a teacher's goals, academic objectives, and targeted social and personal competencies. Students will need to learn how to work together to address group goals as they share resources, assume complementary roles, and learn how to interact effectively to reach a group goal. Students need to learn how to use effective communication skills where students actively listen, contribute ideas, provide each other encouragement and feedback, and ask clarifying questions. The teacher also pre-plans how individual students and groups of students will be held responsible and accountable for their individual and group learning. While students are working in their groups, the teacher circulates to check students' understanding of the goal, task, and roles, and gives immediate feedback. A teacher may need to intervene if students do not understand the task or materials, or have difficulty working together in productive ways. During and after the activity, the teacher provides opportunities for students to reflect on and discuss what they have learned and their group experiences. Prior to digging into the 5 elements of cooperative learning, we will first explore the types of cooperative learning groups. Cooperative learning is not the same as small group work. There is a difference between assigning students to work in a group and using the principles and elements of cooperative learning to structure student groups so they work collaboratively in effective ways. Assigning students to small groups does not ensure that students will know how to cooperate. When teachers only assign students to small groups without purposefully structuring the group, students may not know how to cooperate. Different types of groups may use cooperative learning. Johnson & Johnson identified 3 types of cooperative learning groups: informal groups, formal groups, or cooperative-based groups. Teachers may employ informal, ad hoc cooperative groups for short amounts of time, from several minutes to a class period, to engage students in processing what they are learning. Teachers may organize students into informal groups to solve a warm-up problem at the start of class, process learning in the middle of a lesson, or provide closure to a lesson. For example, using Think, Pair, Share, a teacher poses an open-ended question that has many possible answers and asks students to think about their response. Students then turn to partners and share their responses with each other. The teacher randomly calls on paired students to respond to the question. This approach engages the whole class and can enhance students' focus, attention, and critical thinking skills. Formal cooperative learning groups are more structured and give more complex tasks than informal groups. To plan formal cooperative learning groups, teachers will need to make pre-instructional decisions such as grouping of students, objectives, roles, identify materials, etc. Teachers may utilize formal cooperative groups for longer amounts of time, from one class period to several weeks. Teachers may ask the groups to complete an assignment or a project, write a report, conduct an experiment, or engage in problem solving. For formal groups, teachers need to plan the lesson to ensure it includes the 5 essential elements of cooperative learning, which we will discuss later in the module. Cooperative-based groups are longer-term, intentionally formed, heterogeneous groups of students who meet regularly to provide each other with support, help, encouragement, and/or assistance. Teachers may assign base groups of students to academic support, personal support, or routine tasks, such as checking attendance, collecting homework, etc. A teacher can employ one or more of these types of groups during a class period, depending upon the purposes and academic subject. In fact, allowing students to experience multiple types of groups in a day affords them the opportunity to practice different social and personal competencies and engage more in instruction. For example, a class may begin with a cooperative base group meeting and proceed to a brief teacher introduction with informal group discussions. Next, the teacher could ask students to work together in a formal cooperative lesson and engage in group and class debriefing on what was learned. The class session could end with a return to a base group meeting. Refer to and open Handout 3, Cooperative Learning Planning Template with Tips, which identifies the steps and pre-instructional decisions teachers need to consider in implementing cooperative learning. This handout will be referred to throughout the module. Review Step 1, which focuses on identifying the academic content, standards, and objectives, and Step 2, determine group size, membership, and arrangement, which identifies tips and considerations for forming groups, types of cooperative learning groups to consider using, and prompts. For cooperative learning to be effective with students, Johnson & Johnson recommend that teachers address the following 5 principles or elements: positive interdependence, applying social and personal competencies, individual accountability, promoting one another's success, and group processing. In the remainder of the module, we will explore each of these 5 elements. It is important to note that although there is a distinct element on social and personal competencies, students use these competencies throughout the 5 elements. The first essential element of cooperative learning is positive interdependence, which refers to students working together to accomplish a group shared goal or goals. Students must rely on one another to achieve the group goal. Often, a group goal or task is creative or intellectually demanding, open or discovery-based. Individual students probably could not complete the task independently. Thus, teachers set up positive interdependence by asking each group member to complete a distinct component of the goal or task to form a team product, fostering positive interdependence. For example, each student has one section of a report to write or has a piece of an experiment that they need to bring together to solve the problem. To create a sense of positive interdependence, each student in a group needs to understand that they cannot succeed unless everyone in the group succeeds. Students recognize that they are not only responsible for completing their part of the group task, but also for helping their peers to complete their assignments to reach the group goals successfully. By structuring positive interdependence, students understand that in this group, we sink or swim together. There are multiple ways that a teacher can help students experience positive interdependence during cooperative learning. Teachers may identify group goals, shared resources, complementary student roles, and shared rewards. Review Handout 3, Cooperative Learning Planning Template with Tips. Step 3, Structure Positive Interdependence for tips, considerations, and prompts in planning positive interdependence. The second essential element of cooperative learning is applying social and personal competencies, often referred to as interpersonal and social skills in the cooperative learning literature. Students will employ a variety of social and personal competencies as they work together to set timelines, assume roles and responsibilities, address any issues and troubleshoot challenges, and complete tasks. Such social and personal competencies include the ability to explain and clarify their perspectives, invite others to share feedback, and navigate potentially differing perspectives. Other competencies include the ability to remain open, positive, and respectful when they encounter opposing perspectives, as well as to identify and use evidence to support their perspectives and justify the reasons for their positions. Students will also need to regulate or manage their emotions and behaviors to stay engaged, monitor progress toward their goals, and adjust as needed to ensure that the team is reaching its goals. As is the case with most social and personal competencies, students are constantly growing and developing their competencies within contexts. Thus, it is important to continuously teach and reinforce the competencies that students need to engage successfully in cooperative learning groups within your discipline. This includes previewing and pre-teaching the specific social and personal competencies that students will need to be successful in their assigned task, then monitoring and providing feedback on those skills throughout the process. For example, if you are developing a cooperative learning experience with the goal of solving a problem in a science experiment, you want to have students work on their active listening skills. Prior to engaging in the experiment, you could do a mini lesson on active listening and have that be the social and personal competency, alongside the academic skills you reinforce as students engage in the task. To help you connect social and personal competencies to cooperative learning, review the tips in Handout 3, Cooperative Learning Planning Template with Tips. Step 4, identifies social and personal competencies, which includes a link to Tennessee Department of Education's K-12 Social and Personal Competencies Resource Guide. The third essential element of cooperative learning is individual accountability, which refers to the assessment of each individual student in a group. When students experience individual accountability, they understand that they are responsible for completing their assigned role and accountable for their contributions to the group, and that their contributions have implications for the accomplishment of group goals. To ensure individual accountability, Gillies suggests keeping the group small, about 3 to 5 students. Research has documented that as groups increase in size, students may believe their contributions will go unnoticed and lose their motivation. Teachers have many ways to assess students and their contributions to a group. For example, a teacher could ask a student to explain what he or she has learned to other students, randomly call on one student to present the group's work, or give individual assessments to every student. Teachers could also draw up group contracts that describe expected outcomes for each individual and for the group, and have students rate themselves and each other on each student's contributions to the group. Having students rate one another and the group is also an aspect of the third element of cooperative learning, group processing. Review Handout 3, Cooperative Learning Planning Template with Tips. Step 5, structure individual accountability to review tips, considerations, and prompts in ensuring the lesson includes individual accountability. The fourth essential element of cooperative learning is promoting one another's success so that the group can achieve its goal. To accomplish this element, teachers continue to help students use a variety of social and personal competencies, such as active listening, encouraging their peers' ideas and work, and praising one another as they work together. When students are purposefully taught these social and personal competencies, they begin to understand that how they think, talk, and interact with others in the group will influence how well the group achieves its goal. Furthermore, teachers can help students learn to check in with their peers to determine whether anyone in the group needs additional assistance or support, understand whether they know how to support each other, and if they do not know how, become aware of resources to which they can turn for assistance. There are multiple ways that teachers can help students promote each other's success. For example, a teacher could assign complementary roles to students, including facilitator and summarizer, which also encourages other elements of cooperative learning, such as positive interdependence. Furthermore, students need to encourage each other during group processing. To help students practice this competency, a teacher could ask students for words and phrases that represent encouragement before they work in groups. At the end of the group's work, the teacher could ask for examples of words and ways that they encouraged each other. Review Handout 3, Cooperative Learning Planning Template with Tips, Step 6. Promote one another's success to learn more about tips, considerations, and prompts in planning how to structure lessons so students promote one another's success. The fifth essential element of cooperative learning is group processing. Sometime during or at the end of a cooperative learning experience, time should be reserved for group debriefing and processing. The group should have time to reflect on, clarify, and improve the effectiveness of both the group and its work. Group processing involves students reflecting on what actions were found to be helpful or unhelpful. For example, students could explain how they approached and solved group problems as they arose, and then made decisions on what behaviors or approaches to continue or change. To assist with group processing, teachers have used individual self-evaluations, group evaluations, checklists, reflective questions, and sentence stems. Often, the focus is on asking students to self-evaluate and reflect on how well they address the group's goals and tasks, how well they work together, what they achieved, and what they still need to learn. Refer to Module 7, Self-Assessment and Self-Reflection, to learn more about specific strategies that would be applicable to group processing. Reflective group processing fosters thinking about how, when, and why to employ social and personal competencies. For example, group processing promotes metacognitive abilities, leading students to reflect on their learning and their individual contributions to the group, as well as how effectively the group worked cooperatively and supported each other. Refer to Handout 3, Cooperative Learning Planning Template with Tips, Step 7, Group Processing, to learn more about tips and considerations in planning group processing. Throughout the module, you are provided tips and considerations in planning cooperative learning lessons in Handout 3 that address the 5 elements. As you implement a cooperative learning lesson, provide explicit directions and explain the group structure. Make sure students understand the social and personal competencies that they will be learning to use. Process and evaluate group functioning and student learning. This includes 2 parts: monitoring students and groups as they work, and providing feedback. Provide closure by reviewing the lesson's goals, objectives, and what students have learned. Review and modify the lesson as needed based on your reflections and students' feedback. Review Handout 3, Cooperative Learning Planning Template with Tips, Step 8, Monitor Students and Groups, and Step 9, Lesson Closure. Cooperative learning is widely recognized as a research-based instructional practice that promotes students' active learning and the development of social and personal competencies. Teachers may use cooperative learning activities with students of all ages and abilities in a variety of situations, across subject areas, and for different purposes. Teachers who wish to implement cooperative learning activities effectively know they must plan and address 5 elements: positive interdependence, social and personal competencies, individual accountability, promotion of one another's success, and group processing. When planned well, student learning is transformed in a way that prepares students for success in class and school, as well as in the world and workforce. Cooperative learning can be complex, particularly as you use the instructional practice to support the development of social and personal competencies. To help you plan for using cooperative learning more effectively in your class, complete the final handout, Handout 4, Cooperative Learning Reflection and Additional Information. It contains questions for reflection that can lead to concrete action steps to impact your use of cooperative learning. This handout also provides additional resources that you can call on to find more information about cooperative learning, as well as the references cited in the module's facilitator guide. As you consider your plan of action, keep in mind the following guidance. Set realistic goals. Identify realistic goals for yourself in implementing cooperative learning. Be sure you and your students are prepared to engage. You may want to start out with informal cooperative groups before engaging in formal cooperative groups. In addition, be mindful of what cooperative learning groups and strategies may look like, depending on your students and the grade and subject you teach. Involve students. Let students know you want to try out new strategies that will help them be better learners. Be reflective. Based on the benefits associated with cooperative learning, what changes do you plan to make in planning, implementing, and evaluating cooperative learning in your classes? How will you know if the changes you make are beneficial to your students? If you're reviewing this information to understand the team rubric better, consider how you might share your action steps with coaches, mentor teachers, administrators, or those who might observe your class. They will benefit from knowing about your efforts and may be able to provide feedback on your actions. The Tennessee Department of Education developed this online module in collaboration with the Center on Great Teachers and Leaders and the Appalachia Regional Comprehensive Center, which are funded by the U.S. Department of Education. If you want to find out more about the online modules, or SPC, please contact the Office of Safe and Supportive Schools, Division of Student Support Services at the Tennessee Department of Education. Thank you again for participating in the Cooperative Learning online module. We encourage you to complete the online evaluation of the learning module. We also encourage you to review the other online modules that provide knowledge, tools, resources, and strategies to embed SPC within your classes.